3, 2, 1, you are live.
All right, thank you very much. We're calling the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council to order to review the 2021 capital budget. I'm going to ask everyone who's online here and participating, what we'll do is we'll have the administration present each of the line items. If there is a question from someone, please raise your hand, either in person or on the Zoom call here, and we will ask that person to stop and we'll recognize you. That will be the procedure. But we'd like to get through this in a somewhat timely fashion, efficient, but then again, make sure we get all the information we need, as well as get an opportunity to ask questions too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Helen Tomick. I assume she's still with us. There's so many people on here. It's I see you now, Helen.
Yep,
so
I'm here.
We'll turn it over to you.
Perfect, thank you. So each year, the Office of Integrated Development prepares an annual capital investment and community development program, or better known as the capital budget. This budget is for the upcoming fiscal year of January 21 through December 31st, 2021. As Councilman Fusco indicated a planning committee earlier today, each and every one of the items discussed today will come back to council for further discussion, recommendation, and final budget numbers. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you to council members for allowing us the opportunity to provide you an overview of the 2021 capital budget. Present includes economic development, housing, parks and recreation, public facilities, and transportation. I'd also like to thank city staff for participating in the budget process and providing us with the framework of the budget that's being presented today. And also to thank the mayor for his guidance and reminder that we need to be fiscally responsible while at the same time being mindful of our objectives and meeting the needs of our residents. So having said that, I will start the PowerPoint presentation, and I tested this 3 times and it worked. So we'll see if it works. There we go. So as indicated, today's presentation is economic development, housing, miscellaneous, parks and recreation, public facilities, and transportation. The presentation is a little bit different than in previous years, simply the order in which everything is being presented. So we will start off with a general overview. This year's capital budget is approximately $421 million. So this basically looks at where's the money coming from. 64% of the budget we are receiving from the state, about 8.8 from the federal government, 23.7 is relegated from local funds, and 0.6 is coming from the regional area. This section compares our 2021 proposed budget versus the 2020 budget. And you'll see the greatest increase is in the state share right here. It's almost a 62% increase. And that is due to one project specifically, Akron Expressways, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And then also, I believe there's some money from water capital improvements that are also from the state. So that accounts for the greatest increase in the state allocation. The other one is private funds. There is a 27% increase here. And that is basically attributed to our receipt of private funds for Summit Lake or Lock 3. This kind of digs a little bit deeper into where our money's coming from the local revenue. And I'm not going to spend too much time discussing this, but it is there if you want to review it, and you can come ask questions today or perhaps next Monday after you've had an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper.
Helen, I'm also, I'd like to intersect here real quick or interject. Whenever the planning staff or whomever, whatever department is reporting out, if you guys could not so much use the acronyms, but for funding sources and such, if you could use
Absolutely.
the full title of the funding source, I think that'll make it easier for everyone.
Sure. And I think I referenced the water section. I could figure out which is forward and which is. So the biggest increased was with the water supply revolving loan account from state revenue right there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Regional resources, some of the projects were receiving money from JEDS, from City of Talmadge, the Summit County Transportation Innovation District, and a general Summit County allocation. Private funds, this was for, I believe I meant Summit Lake, assessments, and funds from the Knight Foundation. And this is related to Lock 3, I believe. So the second part of this presentation looks then at the expenditure summary.
Okay, Helen,
go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, but I'm just going to ask if there's anyone on council that has any questions. That's pretty much covered very briefly there, the income side.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was any questions, I'm not seeing everyone, Sarah, so I'm going to rely on you.
I also can't see everybody on this screen, but I can see that so far I have Councilwoman Amobian, Councilman Lombardo, and Councilman Malik with their hands raised. I'm sorry if I'm not seeing you yet, but I will get to you.
Okay, Ms. Amobian, you had questions? Let's go ahead and go through this.
Yeah, just one quick question. When you talk about the local revenue, could you separate the funds from the special funds that were the specials? What was the issue for, whatever, from the 27% that should be part of the budget annually? Is that
so? Right here we are showing income tax at $60 million. That does include the 0.25 allocation for police, fire, and streets. And I'll get to that screen in a minute for that 2021 allocation. The rest of this is the 27% plus additional carryover money that we had excess income tax for money from 18, 19, and 20. So it is not broken out here, but we can provide that breakout for you.
okay? That'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Malik had questions.
Yes, I was just going to ask, thank you, Mr. Chair, if perhaps Ms. Tomic or Mr. Fricker could just speak to, when looking at the 2020 local revenue or local sources, and then looking at 2021, especially in light of COVID, how did we sort of come to the determination of the amount that we would use this year in terms of general operating and income tax?
Well, just to interject there, Councilman, I want to make it clear, because oftentimes this happens. This is not operating, right? So this is going to be capital. But I invite, obviously Helen or anyone from finance to sort of talk about the estimating process. But this is not operating. That happens separately.
Thank you.
So we have tracked our 20 IT4 income every month, and based on projections of what was collected 18, 19, and 20. We also made some adjustments for 20. We are looking at about 14.2 million, which is about $1 million less than what we anticipated on collecting in 2020. But we feel very good about those numbers right now. And if anything, we probably underestimated rather than overestimated. So if there are additional collections in 2021, those will then be carried over to 2022 and then appropriated evenly between police, fire, and streets. And Steve, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No, not really. I think that was, I think we just wanted to take a pretty conservative approach to our collection estimates for 2021 in light of COVID. So as Helen said, if we do end up with higher collections, then we can certainly look at, how those funds could be utilized.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lombardo, did you have a question? I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for Ms. Tomic. The City of Talmadge revenue at $330,000 on the regional revenue screen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not complaining, but the city of Talmadge sends us that money for what reason?
I would have to look at the budget because to be honest with you, I don't recall off the top of my head what it's for. Jim, Ashley, would you recollect what that's for?
It's for water.
What? Okay.
Water main.
Water? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other questions on the income side from anyone from the presentation so far? Very good. Okay, Helen, you're free to.
So we talked about the revenue, the income side, and now we're going to look at the expenditure side. So we're anticipating the same amount, $421 million in expenses. Of that, 55% or $234 million is allocated for water and sewer. So all of this will be discussed next week. Today, so this, the 45% of the budget totals to be approximately $187 million. Of that $187 million, 47% of it is allocated for transportation. Economic development is about 4.5%. Housing and community development services is 5.6%, and debt services about 23%. The other items, public facilities, we're going to dig into each and every one of these throughout this presentation. Expenditures, comparing 2021, which is in blue, and 2020, which is in green, you will see a significant increase in transportation. And I had mentioned earlier, this is primarily attributed to a project with the Route 8 bridge that is coming forward with the state in the next couple of years. In 2021, we have budgeted, I don't think it's not our money, it's ODOT money, about $45 to $47 million. So that's what's attributing to this increase. In economic development, you'll see a decrease, 3% from 2021, and in 2020, it was 10%. And what is attributing to this decrease is in 2020, we had the Romick Road project for the Amazon that was constructed in 2020. And so the bulk of the construction dollars were allocated in 2020. We do have some 2021 dollars for Romick Road, but it's not significant enough. But so this is what attributed to this decrease. The other ones, public facilities, there was also some airport costs that attributed to this decrease right here from 2021 to 2020. So that, oh, and here I think there's a mention of the 2021 IT4 budget or the safety and street budget. So we are looking at $14 million for public services. This is for the resurfacing program, and for the pavement program, about $4.7 million of this 14.2, $4.75 million for the police department, and 4.76 for Akron and fire departments. Of note, I think we have a new ladder truck for fire. Fire is also looking for the replacement of engine 4. And then we are also looking at, and my screen is all messed up. I can't see you at the bottom of what it's saying there. So let's go to police. So police, we're looking at some fire and gear replacement, some software upgrades, in addition to we'll get into each and every one of these during the business. So right now we'll go ahead and dig into each and every section of the capital budget, starting off with, sorry.
Sorry. Okay. It's all right. No, you're doing great. Is there any questions from any committee members? This is the kind of like a holistic, I guess, portion of the budget, just kind of like giving you an idea. Any questions in reference to these graphs on the expenditure side? Not hearing any or seeing any. Helen, you could go forward.
Okay. So we'll start off with the economic and job development section, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Hardy for this section of the application.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Pleased to kick off with this particular section. So I'm not going to go because everyone can read the slides, but I'll just touch briefly on each of these. And Mr. Chair, at your pleasure, how you want to do this in terms of questions each slide or at the end of each section. We have the Ascot Parkway improvements. This is something that many of you are probably familiar with. It's been asked for many years by our businesses out there to do a full depth improvement, and we're underway with that. We are looking at implementation of a business enhancement grant. Oftentimes what we're seeing, especially coming out of COVID, is that many of our current employers, people who are already in Akron, they want to grow. They want to take advantage where they can of the markets, but they are missing an asbestos study, or they need help to put an addition onto their existing facility for a new loading dock. These are small grants that before this particular proposal, we really didn't have a methodology for helping out some of our small to mid-market companies that are already in Akron. And so we're proposing that here. And then ultimately, for the last piece here, we're looking at getting rid of the rubber bowl that's remaining. We have some pretty incredible estimates that have come in, given the fact that the demolition industry is also hurting. And we want to try and take advantage of that while we can. We were able to get state funding for the first emergency demo part, but it's clearly a blight in the neighborhood as well as for the further development of the airport. Next slide. So we have we have the Firestone Business Park. These are closeout charges. As many of you know, and I think was alluded to at a previous meeting here recently, that things are very much underway at the Firestone Business Park with the help and partnership, both private and public. We have our first spec building as promised, under construction and out to market. And you've been so helpful, Council, in pushing this forward. And we have big plans for future expansion at the business park, but the charges you see here are essentially completing phase one of that endeavor. You have the Greater Akron Chamber contract as part of Elevate Akron. This is paid out of the JEDs. We specifically in this contract help to support Robert DeJarnett's position. We have also increased that funding this year because Robert is one person and can't do it alone. It's inclusion is the work of all of us, but he definitely needs a staff. And so we're helping along with the chamber and the county and others to help fund some additional resources around economic inclusion as part of our Elevate Greater Akron work. And then as Helen already alluded to, our Roaming Road improvements are completing. Amazon is up and running. I'm still awaiting some data that I asked for from the company in terms of how successful we have been to date on the hiring side. But as I shared with Council previously, we have been tracking those that have successfully received an interview with the company. And that data is incredibly diverse and very heavy on Akron and Barberton, which is what we were hoping for. Next slide.
Thank you. I'll interrupt real fast here and see if there's any questions. That section, we'll go by section, Mr. Hardy, but as the commercial industrial development side, any questions or comments from anyone? Very good. Hearing none. Let's proceed to neighborhood business.
Our Great Streets program has become almost essential to the work that we do in OID and economic development of the city of Akron, especially through COVID. Thank God we had the relationships we did with our neighborhood businesses. We are proposing to continue the facade grant program as best we can, helping to improve the look and feel of our properties within our business districts. But we've also noticed that given COVID, businesses are having a very difficult time finding the match for our facade grant program. And so we as a city are probably going to need to step up in 2021 and maybe even 22 to help make sure that we're moving things forward from a public design and public space perspective in the street. And so we're increasing our Great Streets public improvements to get after some beautification of lots. We own a lot of vacant lots within these districts, as many of you know, and we oftentimes, outside of mowing them, really can't do anything with them. We're really, through the leadership of Mark Greer and others, we've got some really exciting things working with Keep Akron Beautiful and John Malish to do some improvements there. We are talking about obviously increasing street trees, increasing walkability. We're looking at how we can help to improve the feeling and sense of security as you walk through each of our districts. But we're going to need to take a little bit of a heavier lift the next year or two, given how hurting our businesses are right now. And then lastly on this slide, as we've talked about many times at council, we have $100,000 budgeted as in support of the Merriman Valley Master Plan. Our colleagues and friends over in Cuyahoga Falls are also equally contributing to this, and we look forward to getting that kicked off here soon, meaning within the next month or two.
Very good. I'm not seeing any questions, so.
Very well. Next, we have our small business support. Small business, as you know, has been a cornerstone of what Mayor Horgan has tried to achieve within our economic development mission. Bounce, this is our continued support for Bounce Innovation Hub. They have really stepped up their game through COVID. They were able to stay in the black, even though they had to shut down their facility, and a lot of the things they do, as you know, rely on the collisions, as we call them, people coming in and out of the building and doing their collaborations. Even without that, through the support of our corporate community, grant makers, and others, they were able to stay in the black and are in a really healthy position coming out of the pandemic. Additionally, we have an opportunity with the EDA, the Economic Development Agency or administration at the federal level, to seek a capital grant. I think all of us, and Mr. Chairman, you always talk about ROI and keep that at top of mind. The $500,000 you see there would only be a 20% match for the money that we could receive from EDA through the CARES Act. We need to get ourselves obviously into the queue. We're almost done with the grant, but that grant would once and for all fix the HVAC in that beautiful old building, making sure we have heat and cooling on every floor, which we don't currently. It will open up the second floor for additional space. And as we heard at the chamber event just this past week, there are more businesses were incorporated during the pandemic than in Ohio, any year in Ohio recorded history. There are a lot of folks that are going to need new space, entrepreneurial space, help. And so we want to take advantage of the opportunity that we have with the EDA. Capital access ecosystem. Capital access is a huge focus of OID right now. I've talked a lot with all of you about this. One of our centerpiece programs, as we've talked about, is the Akron Resiliency Fund. You see it there. A lot of that is, if not 100%, is funded out of our COVID-1 and COVID-2 CDBG budget that we received. And you see there our continued support. And that is something that you guys have already approved and already seen. It's just accounting for it in the 2021 budget. Community development organizations, we're continuing our program into 21 to provide up to $100,000 in direct grants to support CDCs in a particular project. And then finally, our Minority Contractors Capital Access Program, or MCAP. We put $400,000, excuse me, actually, we have, $400,000 going to the Urban League in a partnership for that. The county was able to provide a lot of the debt capital to lend to the minority contractors that are part of the cohort. We provide the technical assistance, or we pay for it. It's provided by the Akron Urban League. So our part of that partnership is our support of the Urban League to provide wraparound services for minority contractors as part of that program. I'll stop there.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any questions reference the small business section or neighborhood section. Mr.
Yes,
Mohan, I hear your
Mr.
voice.
Thank you, Mr. Fusca. The minority contract with Urban League, can you talk more about that? Because I don't know what kind of staffing and kind of assistance they really have internally. Have they beefed up their program some?
They have, and in fact, that's the large portion of what we're paying for, is to increase the staff of Kim Lee and make sure that they have capacity to really provide high quality technical assistance. One of the things that Teresa LeGrier, I wouldn't call her new now, but the president and CEO of the Urban League, is a renewed commitment to entrepreneurship and Black small business enterprise. And we want to have her back on that. And so this is one way that we've done that. We're exploring other ways, and it might be a good idea, if it pleases the council, to have Ms. LaRue come in after we get through capital budget, and maybe talk about MCAP, but also just their vision in general around that historic institution. But essentially what we pay for, Councilwoman Amobian, with that 400,000 is increased staff capacity. So what they do, they provide the minority contractors with wraparound services, whether it's needing to get in touch with an accountant, legal services, needing to understand the bidding process, helping to get connected with opportunities to get bids, both private and public. And then what Western Reserve Community Fund at the DFA provide, they provide the capital, the bonding, the flexible capital to hire staff that you might need for a job, or materials that you might need for a job. Unfortunately, what we found with our initial 8 minority contractors, they've got so much credit card debt because that's how they were doing it before, which is not a great way to start a small business, obviously. And so because they couldn't access good bonding and flexible capital in order to hire staff or buy materials needed to be really competitive on a project, not only were they missing out on bids, but they were racking up credit card debt. And so it's a new program. We certainly welcome suggestions and ideas, but that's essentially what that contract is for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see that Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, I do now. Thanks. Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hardy, I'm sorry, I actually had a question, just one back on the neighborhood business district.
Sure.
I know you talked about the facade grant program, and I think that's been really successful and, you know, a great way of showing small businesses that we have their back. Can you talk a little bit? I just want to make sure I understand about kind of what you are thinking in terms of the timeline of having the funding cycles. I know it hasn't necessarily been every year. I think it's been more sooner than once a year. So can you just talk about that coming out of the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a great point. So we had been on a schedule of offering a yearly call for applications for facade grants, and that was working incredibly well. And I think you guys may remember that the round we announced only several months before the pandemic hit was our largest round ever. It was the way the facade grant program works is you have a match, right? So it's typically, you know, between 30 and 50%, but you have skin in the game as either the property owner or the business owner with the support of your property owner. And what we found is even our existing facade grants have been difficult to close on, meaning get the project done because of that match. We've certainly lowered it, we've waived it, we've worked with different business and property owners depending on what their economic situation are. But there's no question that the facade grant program is one of our most successful programs, but it's also going to be one of our most challenged going forward simply because of that match requirement. That is something that HUD looks for. It's not necessarily a mandated thing. As I said, we have lowered it, we've waived it. It just depends on things, conditions on the ground. But our hope would be to have an application period for the facade grant this year in 21. I'm not sure what we'll get. And of course, we're going to do that in concert with our merchants. So before we go out, we're going to want to get a good sense of who's interested, who feels they can do it, what it would need to look like for them to apply, et cetera. So there's still some things to work out, but our goal is to have a round this year if we can.
Good. Further questions? Reference to small business or neighborhood business district? Mr. Neal?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hardy, first I want to say, because mine is a combo of which we're talking about the bounce and Urban League, as well as the great streets and everything. I want to say thank you, because it has made a difference already in my ward. I've seen that. Even I'll say the soft dollars investment from helping the neighborhoods with the holiday decorations and the branding during, it really does make a difference. So thank you very much for that. I heard you when you said, and I can relate to this, when you said businesses are having a hard time accessing capital, even though it's very cheap right now. Do we have an idea of how our banking partners in this community are working with us as far as with small businesses? I know from just our constituent standpoint, a while back we dealt with how our people are challenged when it comes to standard savings and checking accounts. So they go to the payday loans and those types of things because some of the banking fees are high. Do we have a tool where we can measure, one, from just our standpoint, what types of businesses, be they, Black businesses, women businesses, or our international business partners that are having the most challenges? And then two, when it turns to them getting money from the banks, are the banks supporting our initiative and being more flexible with them?
Got it.
Do we have a way of measuring that, sir?
Yes and no. So the good news, and I think your question is probably central to how well or not well we emerge from the pandemic. I think access to capital is as close to a silver bullet for a lot of what ills our economy than anything else. But you need to have a pipeline of investable projects. You need to be ready for investment, all those things. But I think to answer your question directly, we don't have comprehensive data that would say, in this neighborhood, they're not getting loans or mortgages or things like that. But we do have data that show that we have significant problems. I'll give you an example. We do have data from the federal government on the PPP loan program that was a centerpiece of the COVID relief. Our numbers in terms of, despite, incredible efforts made, including going door to door to businesses, our minority success rate for PPP loans was atrocious. And we're looking at now with the new PPP coming out or being refunded, how we can improve those. I will say that one of the things that we found with the PPP loan, and I think it's indicative of lending in particular, is without a existing banking relationship, businesses were way behind the eight ball. And given how quickly that money went out, there was no time to actually establish that relationship or to know how to navigate it for a lot of businesses, especially those that have 2 or 3 LLCs and they're hustling and they're trying to keep food on the table. So one of the things that we are doing, which is not the end all be all, but I think it's a start, is the Akron Resiliency Fund. We can create, with our first ever homegrown CDFI, the Western Reserve Community Fund, we can create our own lending pools that are designed to be more inclusive, designed to be more place-based in terms of areas where we know there's been disinvestment. But I will tell you, even though it's difficult to quantify sometimes, no, I don't believe that our banking partners have been super helpful in this regard thus far, but we're determined to change that.
One last thing, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Mr. Hardy, if we could make sure that the banks that we as a city have our accounts with are willing partners, because that's a little encouragement on our part for them to do right by some of our residents, please. And then the other thing, I know this is capital dollars, but like I said, I know just what I heard on how the city working with the Maple Valley merchants and Mark Greer to bring that holiday piece in. Another thing is most of these businesses, as you well know, don't have time to do a lot of the marketing and the branding. If that is a part of our support to help promote these businesses that are making this investment, be it with a merchant, and I know we have the app that's out there, but anything like that. So I know speaking from experience and just from what I've heard from merchants in my ward would be helpful. Thank you.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions or comments reference to small business, neighborhood business? I just have one quick one, Mr. Hardy. As we see on the small business side, much of the funding, community development block grant funds, right? And as we're very much aware, excuse me, that the CD funds, there's two basically wards in our city that does not receive community development block grant funding because they don't qualify. So they're basically donor areas within our city. Ward 6 and Ward 8, they don't receive any community development block grant funds whatsoever. I think I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask the question. The CARES Act stimulus funds, are they able to be utilized in Ward 6 and 8?
Yes, and we have, and we're looking at ways in which we can infuse some of those dollars for the first time to have flexible dollars within the Great Streets program, because you're right, we have only been able to do only so much in those areas. But yes, CARES Act dollars are eligible.
Okay, very good. Okay, that's what I kind of suspected, but I wanted to ask the question. So if there's any more questions in reference to the small business, neighborhood business, if there's not, we will go ahead and move on to the housing and community services.
Yep. So every year when we do this section, I always qualify this as by stating that these are actually 2020 dollars. Council will not see the 2021 dollars until sometime in summer of 2021. We have to wait for Congress to pass the 2021 budget. Once they pass the budget, Department of Housing and Urban Development has 60 days to provide us with our allocation. And once we get those numbers, then we have 60 to 90 days to prepare and submit our consolidated plan. So last year, I believe it was in possibly July of 2020 that we did this. So it just varies. Some years it's May, some years it's July or August. And in some years, we actually don't get our money until September or October of that particular year. So I wanted to just qualify by stating that this will come back. These are just 2020 numbers. But what we're looking at is continuing our acquisition, relocation, and clearance program. That is looking at properties that, this is physical properties that are severely blighted, and we work with nonprofits to purchase those and then clear those out. We also are looking at a community housing and development organization, or CDC housing, providing matching funds to nonprofits for community housing and development organizations. So this is your Nazareths, your Wencos, the Well, Kenmore Neighborhood Alliance, dealing with housing activities. I forgot a big one, EAC, as they move forward with their initiatives, matching them with our initiatives and providing affordable housing in the city of Akron. The demolition program, we are recommending possibly $700,000 for the demolition of vacant, abandoned, or deteriorated housing units throughout the city of Akron. Habitat for Humanity, we started a partnership with the Habitat about 4 or 5 years ago. As they move forward with their housing construction, we provide them about $40,000 per house, and then they raise the rest of the funds. So this is looking at possibly funding anywhere from about 8 Habitat for Humanity houses in 2021/2022. The program implementation and administration is just paying for staff that work on community development initiatives. We're also looking at public facilities and improvements program, looking at the design and construction of public space improvements and or infrastructure as well. Neighborhood revitalization and state sustainability is actually a partnership with the Housing Rehabilitation Division as they move forward with implementing their, about a year and a half, they received a lead grant. So these funds are to supply any additional funding as needed per household in case the lead program cannot pay for something, and as staff goes in and they do determine that there are some other needs that need to be addressed, they are utilizing CDBG funds as a match for that program to make additional improvements. Homeless prevention and homeless shelters. So homeless prevention, this is a huge increase from previous years at $2.3 million. This does include CARES Act. I refer to it as COVID-1 and COVID $2. We received our first wave of COVID dollars in May of 2020. The second wave of COVID dollars, I believe, is in City Council's consent agenda. So that this is about $2.3 million to provide prevention dollars to folks that have an eviction or are having difficulty in paying rent and allowing them to stay in their unit, or rapid rehousing. If they find themselves in a homeless shelter, then these dollars can be used to pay for security deposit and rent to get them out of the homeless shelter and into housing. Homeless shelters, this is also an increase. This also includes CARES Act dollars. These funds, as with everything COVID related, homeless shelters are seeing an increase in maintaining their units. As folks exit, they need to undergo special cleaning procedures, and they also need additional staff to help with that. So this is to assist with the burden, some of them with the burden of maintaining those homeless shelters in this COVID environment. Minor Home Repair Program is a $400,000 program where we partner with Rebuilding Together, and they provide emergency home repair program for the elderly or low-income homeowners. They must have a disability or be elderly. This is for repairs of up to $5,000, roofs, HVAC system, windows as needed. We always ask them to reserve about $50,000 for October, November of every year as folks are turning their furnaces on and find that perhaps it's not working or they need to replace it. So we ask for them to set aside $50,000 for those emergency situations in case they cannot pay for the repairs on their own. Community Gardens, this is a partnership with Let's Grow Akron, and they run the Akron Grows program on our behalf. Community Services, this is the Community Services program where we work with public service agencies looking at financial literacy programs towards youth and seniors. So this is something that we'll be looking at a little bit more closely in 2022. I'm getting my years confused. As the $21 become available, we're looking at funding opportunities for next year. Fair housing is a HUD requirement. We need to partner with Fair Housing to provide those services for us on our behalf to our residents. And that is it for the housing and community services section. Any questions?
Yes, I see Linda Mobian has her hand up.
Okay.
Mobian?
On the section where you talked about, I think it was demolition or something. Oh, no, not demolition. What was it? Acquisition. Where's that one?
It's at the top.
I don't see it now.
Right here.
It was, yeah, my screen is different. I don't know what's wrong with it. Did any of that money go toward what we are doing at the Mayflower? Or where would that, are we providing any assistance with that project at Mayflower?
At this moment, we are not, but we are anticipating an application from them for funding to assist in the renovation of that building. So they have an application out, but I have not received it yet.
I see. And that would cover what? What are we allowed to do? Because I know they're totally renovating the whole building.
Right now, they're in the midst of renovating apartments. Mm-hmm. So I thought he sent me an email. I think it may have to do with their, they may ask for some assistance for their HVAC system. So that would cover the entire building rather than specific apartments. But I am waiting. I'm anticipating on receiving that within the next couple of weeks.
And the relationship we have with ENDC. Mm-hmm. And I know that I haven't been inside that beautiful facility on East Market yet. Do we have anything to do with that in terms of the criteria they use to allow people to move in? Do you know?
So that is a low-income housing tax credit project. They receive tax credits from the state of Ohio. So they have income requirements that they need to meet as set by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. And I don't know if that is 30% or 60% of the area median income. We too have income requirements on that as well. And our income requirements are 80% of area median income as well. So, but they cannot, anybody that is above that income cannot apply for housing in that facility. And I can get those income guidelines for you as well.
We
Okay,
did help to, we did invest in that as part of the local match.
Yep.
We're a part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Mr. Neal.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you acknowledge me?
Yeah, Mr. Neal, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tomic, Mr. Hardy, the demolition project of housing has always been one of concern to me because there are homes that are torn down that in the right hands can be salvaged. And I'm sure you guys know now, Akron's housing market is hot. People are searching for homes to be able to rehab. Has there been any thought to create one more? I mean, I know we get the things about homes that are being demoed and whatnot, but homes still fall through the cracks. And I know if the numbers are like they used to be, it costs us somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 at least just to demo a home. We could save on that, and we could protect the integrity of our neighborhoods if we work with folks like Mr. Perry Clark with Tribe Ministries and others who do rehab. I've been amazed at some of the work that I've seen these guys do. What I'd like to see us establish, and I'm willing for my ward to be a test market, is to create an equitable housing coalition that is one more meaning that when a house gets on the demo list, it goes before this group to see if it has value. Because honestly, I mean, there's a house I could take you to right now that's down the street from Bookstore on the street I live on, a beautiful brick Tudor that they have gutted totally and is going to be restored. And I've talked to many investors where they could come into a neighborhood and put $80,000 in a home and still get 50 or 60 on the net profit out of it. So I'd like for at a time, Mr. Chairman, since you're also over housing, where if we could bring in folks like Mr. Clark, those investors, someone from the Realtors Association, someone from the Akron Canton Real Estate Investment Association, and talk about this opportunity for us to save money on the front end by not having to demo these, but then also be able to protect the integrity of our communities. Because I always say this, you know, you tear down one house, okay, but you start tearing down a few, it kind of damages the smile of the community. You can miss a tooth in the back, but you start taking out too many, and it you know, it kind of challenges you when you want to have a smile. That's about the best analogy I could come up with. But if we can do that, please, I know I'd love to take you on a tour and introduce you to some of the folks that are doing the work that I've ran into. We could really, really come out on a win in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman, Mr. Chairman, we will follow up with you on that. It's a very interesting idea and actually in line with some of the Planning to Grow Akron 2.0 things that we're hoping to get out in front of you in March. But just for everyone's, we don't disagree. And I would invite Director Segedy to pop in if he has comments, but under his leadership, we have reduced the number of housing demos in the city by quite a bit. I think about 50% from what it was when we came in, and have started to focus more on rehab as best we can. But another note too, a lot of that 700,000 you see there, in fact, I think about more than half of it is actually going to the VBR, which is commercial buildings, which I know is a blight in every ward for council members.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I just echo what James said, and I think what Councilman Neal pointed out about the housing market's important because we have seen a pretty good appreciation now throughout the city in a modest but impactful increase in property values, and I think that definitely is assisting all of us in our quest to have less homes demolished. Like you said, Councilman, there's more of a market for potential rehabbers, both private as well as nonprofits. But we will follow up, as James said, and I think you will see some innovative strategies and planning to grow Akron 2.0 to help even reduce the demolitions more.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you all. Just a little commentary here. I do believe, though, that Mr. Bravo and his group have helped with regards to that. Not long ago, it would take literally years to foreclose on a property and to move it off. It would be abandoned by a bank or by a family, unfortunately, due to economic times. And we would see that for several months, if not years. That's been reduced. So that's been helpful, but no, I made a note and we could talk about that at another time. I'm just going to ask everyone to kind of we'll stay focused here on the budget, and we'll now go on to short of any other questions or comments in reference to the housing side. If there isn't any, let's go ahead and move on to miscellaneous. Let's try to stay on budget.
Perfect. Okay. So under the miscellaneous section, the first line item here is our annual equipment replacement program. This is directed specifically for fire, police, and our streets division. This number is exceptionally high this year. It does include some debt. It also includes IT4 money that is new money from 2021, but also additionally carryover money from 2018, 19, and 20. The Facilities Improvement Program, this is a program for the fire department, looking at different fire buildings where there might be some short-term needs, kitchen replacement, parking requirements, the drive apron or the parking lots themselves, or perhaps windows or HVAC system. What we did is we put a standard line item in here for $150,000 and then let the fire department determine their needs in any given year and move forward with that. I mentioned ladder 8. This is replacing the ladder 8 truck that was purchased in 2003. So that is 18 years old. And then engine 2 is replacing a vehicle that was actually purchased in 2001. That one is 20 years old. So the national standard is 15 years. Both of these are above that 15-year standard. So we'll be looking to replace both of those vehicles in 2021.
Thank you, Helen. I'm going to ask a quick question though. Can you step back to the very beginning, reference the equipment replacement?
Yes.
You mentioned something like this is carryover from last 2 or 3 years.
So when we put together a 2018, I refer to it as IT4 budget, 2018, 2019, and 2020. So let's just say, for example, we anticipated in 2018 that we were going to collect, and I don't have it in front of me, but let's just say we were going to collect for $14 million. Fast forward to the present, in 2018, we collected $14.2 million. So there's that $200,000 that is quote unquote carryover money from 18 and 19, and we have carryover money in 20, and our carryover money in 20 is significantly higher because when we made some adjustments in March, we didn't know what COVID was going to look like. So what we did is we took that money and we apportioned it to each of the streets, fires, and police. And so this number right here looks at the IT4 allocation for 2021 plus their carryover monies from 18, 19, and 20. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, so what's that accumulated figure for the last 3 years?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can get it for you.
Okay.
And we're talking about the IT force. Yes, I can get that for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions on this page? If you're done. I don't know if you're done.
Yes.
Or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Fusco.
Mr. Malik?
Thank you. Ms. Tomic, I think following up on the same thing as Mr. Fusco, I was going to ask, you know, I think the amount on the equipment replacement is, I think, like 30% higher than 2020. And so, you know, when you talk about carryover, and I know you mentioned also that there's debt, is the amount that's budgeted here based on, you know, the need of to replace certain vehicles, or is it possible that some of that money could be allocated outside of this line item?
So two things. In 2020, what we did in March, when we actually did per police, fire, and streets of general obligation debt, and then we also budgeted income tax 4. But because we didn't know what 2020 was going to look like, they actually scaled back on their vehicle replacements. So this is catching up to what they would have spent in 2020. First. Secondly, especially in the streets division, our snow plows, if you were to walk through there and look at some of those trucks, I think you would be astonished. They have some new ones too, but there are some trucks that need replacement sooner rather than later. So this carryover money, I think I would say it's catching up to where we need to be.
Okay, thank you. Would it be possible to get a little bit more detailed breakdown of how that would be spent?
Sure. So are you asking specifically how many police cars are going to be purchased? How many fire cars or fire SUVs are going to be purchased? And how many vehicles are going to be purchased through the streets division?
Yeah, I mean, whatever
Okay.
level of specificity
Sure.
is available.
Okay.
It's not that.
I can give you a ballpark, but as I said earlier, this is going to come back to council in a couple of weeks when they have the specific numbers of vehicles that are going to be purchased. But I can give you a ballpark right now.
Okay.
For next week.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense. I mean, to pull back, you know, especially going into 20, you know, and all the concern about income tax collection, where it was going to be. I mean, we talked about, you know, a reduction of 25% possibly. I know we didn't reach that, but that was prudent to adjust. So good. That's good. Any further questions on the miscellaneous page there? Because if there's not, we're going to go to miscellaneous fire.
Okay. So the first item here is the fire gear replacement program. So the first year of income tax 4, we purchased a second set of gear for each and every firefighter. So everybody, for up until that point, they each had 1 set. Everybody had 2 sets as of now. And what this is an annual replacement program. They age out after 10 years. So they look at those every year and which ones are aging out, they replacement. So this is a standard line item in the capital budget to replace that fire gear. Fire station debt service. So this is actually to pay back debt that was issued for the construction of fire stations 2 and 4.
Okay.
This is going to be an annual, and I don't remember, Mr. Fricker, I don't remember what the the time frame is on that. Miscellaneous fire and EMS equipment. Oops, I did something. Miscellaneous. No, I went way too. Okay, miscellaneous fire and EMS equipment. This is a standard line item as well. It is IT equipment such as thermal imaging for the fire department and EMS equipment for the fire department as well, if they need to buy new oxygen tanks or whatever for for the ambulances, this is the line item they take that under. Police fire CAD system. So this is fire's share of the community aided dispatch system that was purchased a couple of years. This is for the annual maintenance of that system. The vehicle refurbishment program, this is also a standard line item where there are certain vehicles, especially like ambulances, that perhaps do not need to be replaced, or they could take the chassis and the actual ambulance and kind of put it on a new chassis. So this is looking, rather than replacing, trying to prolong the life of some of our fire equipment as much as we can, so we don't have to go out and purchase it. So we appropriate $75,000 every year for the vehicle refurbishment program.
Good. I'm going to ask right now if there's any questions reference miscellaneous fire. Any questions? I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next page because it's kind of lengthy.
Okay, so the second, this section of the miscellaneous budget looks at administrative costs. This actually pays for the staff part of the staff for long-range planning. This includes myself, Mr. Ashley, our new hire, Mr. Vasquez, and Ms. Gregg, that are part of the old capital division. The Akron financial system upgrade. So we are doing a massive upgrade to our financial system. We had about $3 million in last year's budget for that. And this will include software and hardware, looking at a new banner. It's called Workday, looking at that, managing the way we pay our bills. Also looking at purchasing hardware as well, new computers for staff. Building 2 security upgrades. So building 2, anybody can just walk in. This is for in the service department. They don't have any type of security in that building. So this is an effort, an initiative to provide key card entries and provide some safety. Debt service, looking at
That's
about $43 million. This is a service of to pay back our general obligation bonds.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah. Building 2. Not everyone's familiar with Building 2. Where is it located?
Mr. Ashley? Or is Mr. Hall on the call?
Yes, that's out here at the Municipal Service Center. That houses a lot of our, I think, traffic engineering or 311 call center and some of those operations over there.
Very good. Thank you. Just point of reference for everyone. Thanks.
Well, Mr. Hall can stay on the call because this one may also have a question. A driver's trainer simulator. This is something new that we're looking for. This will be shared between police, fire, and safety. So I refer to my high school days when we were taking similar driving classes, and there was a simulator there that you can reenact certain events. So I'm envisioning this is the same thing that could be shared by both police, fire, and streets. Correct, Mr. Hall?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
I could tell you this if I could. Can I brag just a little bit? Just a very little bit. You guys supersized our recommendation. The snow and ice special committee that was formed or what have you, this was one of our recommendations. Was a simulator for the because one of our problems was the turnover was so high, and that we hadn't had really any events for a few years. A couple years ago, we ran into a bit of a snag, but you guys have taken it even further by including other divisions, and so. This is very, very welcome to see this, and kudos to all those that worked on this to see it in this budget, and looking forward to seeing that legislation come through. Good job.
So something new in the capital budget that I haven't seen for a couple of years is we're actually going to be purchasing 6 new Packer trucks for the sanitation division. I've been doing this for 5 years and we haven't had this line item in there. So I guess I could say I'm super excited about that. And the next one is below that is purchasing some smaller automated Packer trucks. So for some of our streets that are a little bit narrower and more difficult to access with a standard truck, we're also recommending the purchase of 2 smaller Packer trucks. So I think that is a win. We haven't had that in a while. I don't know, Mr. Hall, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, like the small automated packer trucks would be something we would be using in some of these high density housing developments we have coming online. We can't really get in there with our big packer trucks, just based on the geometry and the street sizes.
So that wraps it up for the miscellaneous section of the budget.
Very good. Questions or comments from anyone before we go into policing?
Mr. Fusco?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry, Mr. Malik, go ahead.
Thank you. Just briefly, Ms. Tomic or Mr. Hall, regarding the Packer trucks, I think that's because the city is taking over routes from the contractor. Is that why we're having this expense?
Yes, that's definitely related to that. That is correct.
Okay. Well worth it in my mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So we'll move on to the miscellaneous section for the police department. The first line item there is $525,000 of income tax dollars to support our police academy. This looks at recruiting and background for the next class, and this also includes uniform equipment for those new hires. The Akron Safety Center, this includes it's about $3.3 million. This includes, we talked about carryover dollars, so includes 2018 through 20 carryover dollars. This is essentially banking money for the future allocation and future design of a new safety center for the police department. The next four are pretty closely related to the body-worn cameras. This is our annual, the body-worn cameras is maintenance of our annual contract. This is year 5 of a 8-year commitment. This is also supplemental costs related to the cameras, about $47 million. And then we also have an Axon interview room cameras. This is annual payment. This is the final year of a 4-year contract for that. And also this is looking at the Axon Taser contract. This is year 4 of 5 for our annual payments for the tasers for our police forces. Management information, software, hardware, training implementation. These are standard software updates for the police department. Police gear replacement, we talked a little bit about the fire police gear replacement. This is actually police gear replacement for our SWAT tactical body armor. These are all on a 5-year rotation. So we have this line item in here every year and replace a certain number of that body armor for the police department. The police fire CAD system, a little bit ago, we talked about the fire share of the community aided dispatch system. This is the police share of that system. It is the 5 safety forces bond. This is when we initially purchased the CAD system, there was initial payment. So this is to help pay off the payment where we had to issue some debt. And this is for the maintenance. And then the training facility improvements at Dan Street. This would include stormwater management, looking at making improvements at the crime scene unit, and possibly some parking items as well. And I think that's it for police.
Any questions? Mr. Malik.
Thank you. Ms. Tomic or Captain Mikosi, I see you're there. With regard to, actually first as a comment, I know that management software, hardware, and renewals, part of the reimagining public safety process was learning about some of these software programs and just really amazed by, some of the technological sophistication that we have. And I think that the public would benefit if we can all, as council, continue to kind of spread the information about some of these software programs that help with police function and also with accountability. But in terms of the academy and training, I know one of the reimagining recommendations was, making sure that the training staff and facility has the resources it needs, and particularly has the infrastructure. I know one suggestion was making sure the roll call, I know this isn't specifically training, but making sure the roll call room is equipped with, screens and things to potentially have short trainings there as well. So Captain Makosi, can you just talk a little bit about this $525,000 line item for Academy and training?
Sure, and thanks for having me. The Academy and training line item is more specifically for the training academy. We do have an upcoming academy starting on February 22nd, where we'll have some new hires beginning their training. So this covers the cost of their individual uniforms and equipment as they begin, and also covers things like the range costs, ammunition costs, instructor training costs, things of that nature. There are some other items there that pertain directly to the academy, technical upgrades, some of which move toward what you're talking about with the roll call training. We have asked in the past for some equipment so that they can do roll call training videos and things like that. We're also looking at a Chromebook project where we will extend the classroom electronically. So instead of making copies and a lot of paper and things like that, we actually can offset our costs entirely, the cost of copies and paper with these new Chromebooks after just 2 academies. So these are some of the items that we're budgeting for under that line item. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, thank you, Captain. I appreciate it. That does.
All right.
Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. Not hearing or seeing anyone. Can go ahead and move into traffic, I believe.
Yeah, traffic is going to be pretty quick. So we have a line item in here for looking at the Castle Boulevard rail crossing, including additional signal there. It is some cause for concern. So we've looked at it, talked to the traffic engineer and engineering. So the recommendation is to add a traffic signal there. Downtown wayfinding is a partnership with Downtown Akron Partnership, and looking at better signage in downtown and specifically on Main Street to help direct folks in the direction that they want to go in. And the traffic miscellaneous. So what we did this year is we've had a number of requests from the traffic department. They were all great requests, but we felt that we would just allocate them $100,000, and as they move forward in 2021, they can prioritize what their greatest concerns are, their greatest needs, and then come back to council with specific requests of how to allocate this $100,000.
Mr. Fusco.
Yes.
Hey. Oh, there we go. Freeman.
Yeah.
Hey, I know, I don't, and if I've missed it, I apologize. Updates on our speed humps, and is there anything in traffic that's taking those into consideration?
Good question, Mr. Freeman.
So that will be addressed a little bit later in the presentation. So
okay.
Would you mind waiting, or do you want me to talk about that?
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure I didn't miss it when it was time.
No, it's coming up. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Malik?
Thank you. Just a quick question about the castle in Windhurst. Is that the full cost for putting in the traffic signal, and what's the timetable on that?
Is Mr. Tiadecki on the line?
I want to get back with you on that. I'll talk with Mike Lapika, who's spearheading that in conjunction with the ORDC funding. So I believe it'll still be done this year, but I'll get you a better time frame on that.
Thank you, sir.
What's ORDC?
Ohio Railroad Division something.
Okay, what's their number and what's our number out of the 118?
Ohio Railroad Development Commission.
Okay.
So I'd have to look in the budget to see what the split is between them and us.
Okay, that's fair. No rush.
Okay, we can get that to you.
Yeah. You can get back to us on that one.
Okay.
It looks like
Actually,
Curious.
like it's almost completely ORDC,
It's-
like 106,000.
yeah, 106.2 by ORDC and 11,800 from the city of Akron.
Very good. Just curious. Thank you.
Am I going the wrong
Anything else
way?
on traffic? Go to trees.
So the Akron Waterways Renewed Street Planting Program, $500,000. This is through our capital fund, and we are putting some we are recommending looking at some CDBG funds for this, looking to replace 2 trees for every tree that has been removed from different projects. Citywide tree removal, there are some trees that are dead or just need some TLC, or perhaps it's a little bit too late for the TLC, so we need to remove those trees. Citywide tree trimming program. It's pretty much self-explanatory, going through different streets and trying to trim the trees to maximize their life, and also if there's any conflict with wires from Ohio Edison or lighting. So we have staff that, or we have folks that go out and trim those trees on our behalf. The final line item under miscellaneous trees is the annual beautification program. This also pays for the City Hall beautification on an annual basis, and also improvements across the street at Goodyear Park. Any questions about that?
Yes. What SLA? What does that stand for?
Street lighting assessment. Those are local funds.
Yes, they are. Questions or comments, Mr. Lombardo? You need your video on, audio, I'm sorry.
You're right about that. Thank you. So the citywide tree removal program, is this for trees between personal property, or how is that defined?
These are the dollars, Councilman, that we use for those, for all of that, yes. So it's the nuisance trees, it's the trees that have fallen or are at risk of falling into the right of way, those types of things.
Okay. And citywide tree trimming, how is that? How does that work in conjunction with what Ohio Edison already does?
So these are things that we do. So that when we say citywide tree trimming, that would be exactly what you see there, things that would impede like our traffic signals, okay, or parks, or things that we would consider to be dangerous, or for health reasons of the tree would need to be taken care of, like on our right of way or our property. Ohio Edison, as you know, has carte blanche in terms of their ability to trim trees in relationship to the power lines.
Okay, so a citywide tree trimming example would be maybe something like down Memorial Parkway?
Yes. Or that could be an example of both, actually, tree removal and tree trimming, depending on what the scope of the work is.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. We'll now move on to the parks.
Parks and Recreation, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Ashley.
Okay, thank you and good evening. The $9.1 million parks budget this year is a 43% increase from the 2020 capital budget of $6.35 million. More importantly, this budget lays the groundwork for major renovations of our park facilities over the next decade. Mr. Hardy will go into more detail on 2 of these initiatives as we go through this slide deck. The Akron Parks Challenge is the first one, $300,000. This is the design and construction of recommended park improvements identified by the Akron Parks Collaborative through the Akron Parks Challenge. The 2020 grant round is scheduled to kick off in April, and 2 parks will hopefully be awarded by June. This is the 4th year of this resident-driven parks redesign program. Photos on this slide highlight the improvements of the 2018 grant award winners at Cadillac Park, Chestnut Ridge Park, and Reservoir Park. 2019 grant award winners were Park East and Elizabeth Park. Park East has been complete and Elizabeth Park is scheduled to be completed later this summer. The Canal Park Stadium improvements. These are upgrades needed to maintain minor league baseball standards. This is the aging stadium, which was built in 1987. Improvements in recent years include upgrade to stadium lighting and most recently extending protective netting from dugouts to the foul poles. And the next slide. Community reinvestment program. This is one that Mr. Hardy is going to go over in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. We have what we believe to be a really exciting proposal within the 2021 capital budget. As many of you know, our community centers have been languishing for many years. They all have incredible amounts of deferred maintenance, some more than others, and that is usually directly related to their age. In getting after these issues over the years, it's been a piecemeal approach. I would call it putting Band-Aids on hemorrhaging wounds. All of you have been incredibly passionate in the years that I've been at the city at trying to get after this issue. And I think OID has finally come up with something that we're really excited about. With the support of Mayor Horrigan and his focus on increasing year over year the funding that we put into our neighborhoods for parks and recreation, we're proposing this to start a community center reinvestment program that would essentially put $2 million of new money per year into each center on a worst first basis. So I have to give incredible kudos and thanks to Service Director Luddle, Deputy Service Director Lash, and the team at Building Maintenance who partnered with us to put together a comprehensive list of deferred maintenance at all of our community centers and establish a list of priorities from worst to best. And so what you see here is essentially what building maintenance came up with in consultation with recreation and capital planning and long range planning. This was really truly an interdepartmental effort. We've gone through everything and we've established a cadence starting with Ed Davis, Patterson Park, and Reservoir Park. Those were the three worst, mainly because of age, but also because of lack of investment over the years. And those are the three that we are starting with. We have, through a competitive RFP process, brought Prime AE, which is a locally based firm, on board to help us work through the take what building maintenance did and go even deeper on the three first up and start to put together basic budgets for how we could spend some of those $2 million. Some of the stuff is not sexy, right? All of these places need more new HVAC or new boilers, better roofs, tuck pointing, painting repairs, carpet repairs, things that aren't necessarily sexy. But the good news is that every single one of our first three, based on the initial reports from Prime AE, have significant room for new renovations or programmatic enhancements that will be community informed. So one of our goals with this program is to make sure that you as council people and residents in your ward are driving some of the more creative and flexible investments that we make as we go and touch all of these community centers over the next decade. This is a comprehensive program. It's aimed at equity, but also at making sure that we are creating a substantial improvement when we go into these community centers. And we'll get to this in a moment, but that we want to get after the stuff that breaks every year in a better way. So we've increased the miscellaneous parks budget that Mr. Ashley administers as a way of giving you some assurance that even if your community center isn't high on the list for the next year or two, we're not leaving you out. We're still going to get after things that break as they break, but we want to get on a cycle so that we don't ever allow these community centers to get to the state they're in now. And Mr. Ashley, I don't know if we have any other slides on this, but I'll stop there and turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. The Firestone Stadium improvements. Our priority is to address the issues related to the Softball Hall of Fame part of the stadium, which there's been a number of leaks over the years. In 2020, dugouts were repainted as well as the stadium bleachers. The Good Park Clubhouse roof replacement is just reshingling the roof at the facility. The next two projects are for the continued design necessary for the removal of the Gorge Dam. The first one is for the contaminated sediments. This is ODNR funds, $73,000. This is continued design by US EPA for the removal of the contaminated sediments that have accumulated behind the dam. City of Akron is providing the local share of this work by using ODNR funds. Prior years, we've spent $661,000 on this design, and this is the remaining amount. Second project is the Gorge Dam removal, $500,000 EPA. This is a Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant to pay for the design of the removal of the concrete dam. This is managed by the City of Akron. During the current design phase, engineering will be evaluating structures in the dam pool to ensure they are stable when the dam is removed and the water level drops. Engineering will also evaluate options for river restoration after the dam is removed. Over the next 2 years, total design costs are estimated at $1 million. Construction anticipated to begin in 2023 with completion in 2024. Next slide. The inner belt removal. This preliminary design to remove the concrete and replant as green space. This is a short-term action, which is the first step in reimagining the Akron inner belt. The Kaboom Playgrounds. This is $200,000 public-private money. We're partnering with official partnership with Kaboom for the construction of 2 to 3 inclusive playgrounds annually. This will be a multi-year program. Past Kaboom sites include Stoner Hawkins, Patterson Park, South Park, Prentice Park, and Park East. And we're currently working on concept proposals for Kerr Park and Joy Park. Joy Park's playground is that we're looking at is over 30 years old, and Kerr Park was installed in 1998 and is in poor condition. The next item is directly for Kerr Park, $75,000. This is community engagement for this began last spring. Kerr Park is a 2.5-acre site with 2 tennis courts, tot lot, intermediate play areas, and a fenced ball field. E.J. Brinson has been spearheading a task force, which consists of the following groups: the Akron Parks Collaborative, Omega Psi Phi, 100 Black Men, Summit County Think Tank Coalition, and One Body Advancement, as well as many residents from the community. Lane Field Soccer Fields. This is a 2020 carryover project, which was delayed due to the coronavirus, converting 2 underutilized fenced baseball fields into an open soccer field. Also includes renovation of the existing soccer field. The lighted larger baseball field will remain. Next slide. The Little Cuyahoga River Restoration Lowhead Dam removal. This is EPA funded. Project would restore floodplain areas and remove 3 lowhead dams to address channelization in the river and improve fish habitat. As shown on the slide, the floodplain restoration begins near Peck Road and heads south through Memorial Parkway, with the dam removals taking place near East Market Street and River Street. Design in 2021 and 22, construction scheduled in 23 through 25. Total cost is approximately $4 million, and this will be all federally funded. Lock 3 vision plan, $2.75 million, redevelopment of Lock 3 in accordance with the Olin master plan prepared with the Akron Civic Commons. This takes concept plans to final design. $10 million total project cost, with approximately $5 million of that raised to date. The city's commitment is $1.5 million, construction scheduled from 2022 to 2024. Mason Park site improvements, $175,000. This has been in our budget a few years ago. It's for regrading of the 2 former baseball fields to allow the site to be better utilized for football and soccer. The last time this was shown in the budget was in 2019. Site issues significantly increased the cost of this project from 50,000 we had previously budgeted to the 175 we have budgeted now. Miscellaneous parks and community centers. As Mr. Hardy indicated, it's been increased to $350,000. This is for small capital improvements at various parks and community centers. And we will be addressing some of the outdated equipment and repairs at various community centers as identified through the community center facilities audit and assessment. Project this past year include the Waters Park pickleball courts. We had emergency repairs at Bald Street Pool and Sauna, as well as gym floor renovations and the development of an inclusive playground at Adams Park. Next slide. Reservoir and Perkins Pool improvements. Again, I'll pass this on to Mr. Hardy for more details.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. I am almost emotional at how excited we are to present this to you. After many years, decades even, we have a real plan that we feel we can get done to completely renovate both Reservoir Park Pool and Perkins Pool. The $700,000 that you see there is to complete community engagement and all the design work on both pools, and be in a position, hopefully, to begin with the first pool's construction in 22 budget, and then the following pool in 23. What you see here is, let me take a step back. We also went through a competitive RFP process, specifically looking for an architecture and engineering firm that specialized in aquatics facilities. And we were able to find Brandstetter and Carroll, which is a firm located in Cleveland. And I have to give special credit for both on this and the community center program to Michelle DeFiore from our OID team for spearheading and being the project manager on these. What you see before you are the basic layouts of what we believe is possible and really catalytic for both sites. You will notice that they both look and feel very identical, at least from a pool perspective, and that's on purpose. One of the things, again, that we stressed as part of OID is interdepartmental collaboration. We worked with building maintenance and the guys and gals that ultimately have to maintain these, our community center supervisors who have to program these, and having a similar or almost identical footprint for the pools, the most expensive parts to maintain, will actually help us to create economies of scale, both in terms of the mechanicals of the pools, but also in terms of the ongoing maintenance from furniture, canopies, slides, all those types of things. And we also have really unique pool houses at both facilities. So you have Ed Davis, which I personally think is actually a really architecturally cool looking building, and we all did. So we wanted to see how we could save it. And at Reservoir Park, no offense, it's not as cool looking, but it's still very useful. And so how can we reimagine both of these facilities into not just usable facilities, but high quality, desirable facilities for both of these neighborhoods? And if you could just go back one slide, Helen, I asked the folks on the team to put some of these pictures on to give everyone a sense of where we're at. And I know all of you, especially in the community centers, have similar issues. I mean, when we have situations where bathrooms have no more stalls, when they don't work, when they're not functioning, we're sending a message to the communities that try and use these facilities, and that message is not positive. And so we feel strongly, and Mayor Horgan has directed us to do something about it. And so I'm incredibly excited to present this to you. We think that to completely renovate both pools and pool houses all in will be around $8 million, $8 to $9 million over the course of several years, as we said. The $700,000 you see here again is just to complete the designs and be ready to bid the first project for next capital budget. Mr. Ashley, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, Rubber City Heritage Trail. This is continued design of the multi-use recreational trail that will utilize a 6-mile rail corridor. Phase 1 improvements begin at 3rd Avenue and Innovation Way and head northwest to East Exchange Street. Includes 4,600 feet of trail and 2 bridge conversions. Engineering, we did receive $700,000 from AMATS for phase 1 construction. And Engineering Bureau will be submitting for phase 2 construction grant in August of this year. And the Ohio Erie Canal Coalition is taking the lead on the fundraising for this project. Total construction cost is estimated at $1.4 million. They have design in 2021 with construction in 2024. Schneider Park walking path, $155,000 to construct a walking path within Schneider Park. The length would be approximately a half mile to 3/4 of a mile. Stoner Hawkins Park, rehabilitation of 3 basketball courts. This is another carryover from the 2020 capital budget that we're going to address. Summit Lake Vision Plan, $3 million is shown. This is a resident driven improvements as part of the reimagining the civic commons in accordance to the Summit Lake Vision Plan. The focus would be on Loop Trail and North Shore activity area. The goal is to transform the 36 acres along the North Shore into a destination with emphasis on equity in the space. Design elements include bridge connection to the towpath, a craftsman style pavilion, picnic area, boardwalk, walking paths, boat launch, observation area, green space, as well as a place to get refreshments like a cup of coffee or an ice cream. $10 million project has roughly $7.5 million raised to date. The city's commitment for this project is $3 million over the next several years. Waters Park, $20,000 is shown. This is the resurface, the Waters Park Olive Street parking lot. It's approximately 35 spaces and serves the new pickleball courts as well as our shuffleboard complex. And that concludes the Parks and Rec section. Do you have questions?
Any questions reference Parks and Rec? Any questions? Where are we at? 5:39.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you can see Councilman Malik has his hand raised.
I'm sorry, I do now. Thanks. Mr. Malik.
Yeah, just briefly, I know Mr. Hardy mentioned, getting emotional about the pools, and I think the pools, the Summit Lake Vision Plan and the community center program, they all speak to kind of a broader thing, which is, we hear controversial stuff about budgets, like defund the police, but the reality is that a lot of these kinds of things, when you look at, not having doors on our stalls in the bathrooms and things like that, a lot of these things have been underfunded for many years. And so when we're looking at allocating this money for the pools, for the community centers, I mean, I think it's just really admirable and speaks to a focus on equity. And, I wish that we could allocate more for some of these projects. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Public facilities.
Mr. Chairman, I have something for Park and Rec.
Okay, Mr. Neal.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy, Mr. Ashley, thank you for the investment in the Park and Rec facilities. I have a question in regards to mainly the soccer fields and possibly, I didn't see, it looked like I saw tennis courts, but it may not have been tennis courts, but mainly the soccer fields down at Lane Field. When we looked at that, did we look at the track down there and get an idea of what it would cost to do that? Because, and I could talk offline, but when we talk about, understanding structural and institutional practice and equity, that has a complex history that goes long before any of you, well, definitely before this administration was in office. And I ask about that because, we have soccer fields on Copley Road that inner city soccer has been restricted from playing on for my son played on there when he was 5. My son's 28 now. So for some 20 something years, I don't know, I don't know how old those soccer fields are, but ever since they've been there, there's been a challenge with them playing there. When other kids played there, it wasn't a problem. It wasn't until they asked to play there that became a problem. So I'm asking this because of this. That track down there is utilized by Buchtel High School. It is also utilized by West Akron Track, which is a 20-year program ran by Denise Brandon and Regina King, just as successful as inner city soccer. And I believe Emmanuel Christian Academy runs down there, and I think St. V runs down there as well. I spoke with Mr. Vassilotti and Ryan Pendleton to ask if that was their responsibility. They said that's the city's responsibility. Is there any, have we looked at what it costs to redo that track and to make that a real competitive facility down there so that the high school could run meets and so that inner city soccer, West Akron track can host events down there?
Excellent question. I'm not familiar with an analysis of the track, but I can get with you and Mr. Ashley offline. We can, if we haven't done it, we could certainly do it, see what it would take.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Public facilities.
Okay, thank you. First project, 222 South Main Street skylight replacement repair. This is the former O'Neill's building. There's a large exterior skylight above the Retzel Andrus Law offices that need glass repairs and joint sealing. City's replaced 2 broken panels this past year. The following 3 projects address renovations out at the Akron Fulton International Airport. The airport FBO hangar roof replacement is funded with TIF for $160,000. We roofed the hangar portion of the FBO building with new insulation and cost-effective TPO roof membrane, which includes new gutters. The Akron runway 725 rehab is $4 million, grinding and resurfacing a 2-inch of asphalt and associated repairs, including upgrade of runway lighting and signage. This is 95% federally funded. The airport taxiway lights and signage, $500,000. Upgrade the taxiway lights and signage. The lights are over 20 years old. This is an ODOT airport grant program. It's covering 95% of this construction cost. Grant awarded to Akron last September and was the largest of 10 grants awarded statewide. Next slide. Got to go up.
One more, this one? Hurry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yep. Oh, no problem. The next 2 projects address the continued rehabilitation of the 4-level Cascade parking deck, which was built in the late 60s and has over 2,000 parking spaces. The Cascade deck elevator modernization is the first project. This is the first year of a multi-year program to modernize the green and orange elevators. The 2 green elevators will be modernized first, with the door operator, clutch, rollers, tracks, and closers are all over 30 years old. The Cascade garage concrete repairs. This work includes concrete repairs to level 1 floor and level 2 ceiling, as well as patching and waterproofing. These items were identified by a comprehensive parking deck study performed by Walker Consultants. Fire Station 2 and 12, $1.8 million is the final construction cost of Fire Station 2 and initial project costs for Fire Station 12. This includes IT4 revenue from 2018 through 2020. Plan is to kick off Fire Station 12 project this spring, begin site work late 2021, and facilitate starting construction sometime in 2022. The fuel management replacement system. Replace existing outdated EJ Ward fuel management system. The age of the system has caused disruptions in pump services at all 3 of our locations. That's Triplet East Market and Copley Road. And this is to improve those as well as ensure accurate department fuel billings, and we'll work with our newer fleet software. And then the final project is on this page is the Greystone roof replacement. This is design and replacement of the main roof. Anticipate legislation for this project to be introduced in February for further information. And the next slide. Miscellaneous facility improvements, $250,000. These are improvements of public buildings and structures, including security upgrades, generators, lighting upgrades, HVAC upgrades, roof repairs, and door upgrades. This includes addressing municipal service center needs. And that on this slide, that photo is of building 2. To give you the back end of that, the traffic engineering offices are further north, but that's the building that was discussed earlier. Municipal building plumbing upgrade. This is an annual line item for improvements of existing plumbing systems, including updating fixtures and countertops and inoperable toilets. The parking deck improvements, $75,000. This is an annual program. Various improvements to parking decks, including waterproofing ceiling, painting of parking stalls, crosswalks, and new signage. Again, this will be working off the comprehensive parking deck study performed by Walker Consultants. The parking deck lighting upgrades, $100,000, an annual program upgrading metal halide lighting to LED lighting in our parking decks. This will be a phased approach for each deck. Payback on new lighting is approximately 2 to 3 years. And then the final project is the parking garage pay station upgrades. $1 million is upgrade existing parking deck pay station, gates, and computer system. This began in 2020. Cascade parking garage has been completed and is shown on this slide. City Center is in the works, and the other decks include Broadway, High Market, Morley, and Opportunity Park. And then this concludes the public facility.
Good. Is there any questions or comments reference facilities? Any questions? Okay, at this point, I see Mr. Malik, of course.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fusco.
Okay, don't apologize. It's all right.
Mr. Ashley just had questions about the parking. With regard to the cascade repairs, the elevator and the concrete, would it be possible to get some more information about that? Maybe get a copy of that study and get a better sense of the time span of the years over which that's going to be done. And the same thing for the garage pay station upgrades. I know that we had, obviously last year's payment was for Cascade, but it would be helpful to know over how many years and how many more years we're looking at.
Okay, yeah, we can get you that is a significant report, that parking deck study for all our parks. So we can get that through Mike Tedecki has that.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, with that, we'll take a 10-minute break and I'll see everybody at 6. 10 minutes. We've been at it for 2 hours. So we'll take a quick 10-minute break, everybody. We'll start promptly though at 10. I mean at 6 in 10.
I'm going to leave the live stream on. Please mute yourself.
I feel like I'm by myself, but Sarah, I see you're there. I was thinking, on the break there that perhaps what we should do is order pizza and chicken for everyone, have it delivered next week for the rest of this, and then no one will miss dinner. So just a
That's a
thought.
great idea.
That's a great idea, Jeff.
Fantastic idea. You want my address now or?
Well, Mr. Keith handles that. That's not my department.
I think next week's presentation will be shorter, or at least traditionally it has been.
Okay, well, that's we'll take that as a promise, Ms. Tomic.
Yes.
So, if it doesn't happen, you're paying for everyone's dinner. Oh, good. So I assume everyone is present and accountable and ready to start back at this. And
Yeah, it looks like people are coming back.
Pardon?
I said, yes, it looks like people are coming back.
All right, good. Are we okay to go? I see the live thing on. So yeah, Ms. Tomic, we'll go ahead and begin.
Okay, so this is the last section of today's presentation, and hopefully I won't take too much of your time this evening.
No, that's okay. Take your time.
So the first section, looking at arterial and collector streets, we're looking at the Canton Road East Market intersection. This includes the construction of a roundabout on Canton Road and East Market Street intersection. It was a high crash area, a dangerous intersection with high traffic congestion. This project was actually approved by City Council in 2020. It is going out to bid. It went out for bid in early January of 2021, awarded in late January of 2021, and we're hoping to begin construction in March of 2021. East Exchange Street, Complete Streets. This project has been around for a couple of years. It is in the design phase, looking at preliminary plans for improvements. It will include interconnected signals, bike lanes, parking, and pedestrian improvements. We have secured CMAX funds, and I don't remember what that stands for, safety and STBG funds. We are pursuing OPWC funds, and we're looking at a potential construction of 2023 or 24. Hickory Street study. This study is to determine the needs along Hickory Street corridor, including pavement, drainage, and utilities. This is about $50,000. Main Street Promenade 2 is an extension of Main Street Promenade 1. This is looking to reconstructing and creating a green and complete street gateway corridor from Mill Street to State Route 59. The project was awarded in summer of 2020. Construction began in fall of 2020, and some underground work was also taking place during that time period. We are estimating tentatively that Mill to Market will be completed in the summer of 2021, and the entire corridor will be open to traffic in 2021 as well. The Market Street study, we're budgeting about $100,000 of GO. We are looking at lane requirements, including bike, buses, and pedestrian crossings along the entire corridor of East Market Street, tentatively looking at Route 8 to Case Avenue. That is still up for discussion. Other options could present themselves, but that's what we're looking at right now. Mall Street improvements. This is from my notes show from Hawkins to Snyder, $125,000. Looking at the completion of design of brick pavement reconstruction from South Hawkins to Snyder. We are looking to submit, or we've submitted a OPWC application in fall of 2020, and hopefully that will get funded and this project can move forward. North Main Street Complete Street study. We are partnering with EDG, a local design firm, looking at preliminary design of public improvements from the Y Bridge to the North Corporation line. This could include a road diet with bike lanes, signalization, paving, sidewalk parking, streetscape amenities, and appropriately designed in the Great Street area. STBG and CMAQ funds have been secured. We are in the process of submitting safety funds, and we'll also be looking at state OPWC funds. Smith Road traffic study looking at the traffic conditions along the Smith Road corridor. We are looking at partners to help us fund this project, and then also looking at a consultant to assist in the design of this project. State Route 261 Dart Rand. This is a $1.1 million project looking at signal upgrades and replacements along State Route 260 at Dart and Rand. This includes backplates, new signals, timing, and pedestrian buttons. It will be bid in February, March.
We're missing the last part.
Bridges. The
Okay, yeah, I'd
Bowery.
like to stop and ask if there's any
Questions,
questions
comments?
on the arterial collectors.
Mr. Fusco?
Yes, I assume that there would be. Mr. Mallett?
Thank you. Ms. Tomic, on the Smith Road traffic study, I think our contribution, the $85,000 is, I think, great. And I think, more than our fair share, or it is our fair share. The $40,000, can you break down where we are on the other private donors, which I assume are the other jurisdictions?
So we've had initial, very, very preliminary conversations with them in like February of 2020, and then COVID hit. And to be honest with you, this has kind of been put on the back burner. So we need to start up those conversations again.
Okay. Do you know what the timetable for this study might be for?
I don't have that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Reference arterials and collectors? Okay, very good. Go on to bridges.
So the Bowery Street Bridge Study is a preliminary study to determine the needs along this bridge on Bowery Street. We are getting ready to submit a BR application, a bridge replacement application in February. These are federal funds that we will be seeking, and looking at submitting an OPWC application for funding in summer of 2021. The Evans Avenue Bridge, this project is under construction and is a carryover from previous years. It is a realignment of Evans Avenue to provide grade separation over the CSX Railroad tracks. We're anticipating completion of this project in November of 2021. The Goodyear Bridge, Boulevard Bridge over the W and LE Railroad. This is a design and total replacement of the Goodyear Bridge. BR funds have been awarded, and we submitted an OPWC application in 2020, and we're hoping to start construction in 2022. Princeton Avenue Bridge Aesthetics. This is basically a carryover from 2020, looking at improving what the bridge over Princeton Avenue looks like. This is in conjunction. This is our share of the improvements and partnering with the ODOT project, which is a couple million, I think it's a several $1 million project, but this is our share for those bridge improvements. Stuber Street Bridge over the Little Cuyahoga at $1.2 million. This bridge has been identified as a high priority due to some folding concerns. Design and deck replacement, OPWC funds have been awarded. Design is complete, and we're hoping to begin construction in February of 2021. The Waterloo Bridge, Waterloo Road, Brewster Creek culvert replacement. This is $1 million project. The bridge has also been a concern, looking to replace the box culvert. We're hoping to advertise and bid in March of 2021 and begin construction in April of 2021. Akron Expressways and Bridges. This is a massive, massive ODOT project that will be taking place over the next several years. I thought numbers like 185 million to take place. Part of it is the Route 8 bridge, Perkins to the Central Interchange, and also 77, the Central Interchange to Waterloo. This is year one of that project. These are all ODOT funds, $45 million, and more to come in years 22 and moving forward. State Route 224, 241, Maston Road intersection. This is a safety project looking to improve signalization along 224, at the intersection of 224 and 241. Council actually passed legislation in 2020, and we're hoping to begin construction in March of 2021. Any questions on bridges and expressways?
Just wanted to say something that I'm going to make a note here for everyone. We probably need to invite someone from ODOT so that we all are educated on this expressway bridge long-term resurfacing slash. It sounds like it's going to be more than just resurfacing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yes.
But I think we all need to be educated on that. So I'm just going to make a note.
Okay.
So that's all. And any other questions on reference bridges, expressways? Okay, very good. Thank you. Residential street.
Residential streets, 4th Street improvements. This is actually an OPWC project funded a couple years ago. Construction is set to begin in 2021. Full improvements from Kenmore Boulevard to Maryland Avenue, including new asphalt, pavement, and concrete curb and gutter, sidewalk, and drive aprons. Bellawood Drive improvements. This is design costs for the replacement of the deteriorated concrete street with an asphalt pavement. So this is year 1, looking at design, and hopefully we'll be able to apply funding sources to assist in this project. Copley Road accident study to determine the causes of increased traffic along the street. This is the initial year 1 of this project, and we'll be looking more closely at the Copley Road corridor and seeing what we can do to reduce crashes along the street. So the neighborhood traffic interventions. This was Councilman Freeman's question from before. This is the mayor's priority to build inventory in each ward for speed bumps. The goal is to have this an ongoing project. We are looking at $100,000 this year. This would be to have 2 in each ward this year and then build on that in future years. This includes speed tables as well, and we are in the process of looking at where best to locate them. These would be temporary that we could remove every year in October for plowing for snows, and then they would be replaced again in March and April. They would not be concrete speed bumps. And then additionally, the study, Safe Routes to School study, we have had a number of Safe Routes to School projects. So and we're also required to submit a 5-year plan. So this would provide us with a 5-year plan and looking at where next to target our Safe Routes to School program. Resurfacing program. This program is significant in 2021. We're looking at potentially a $13.9 million program, looking at anywhere from concrete pavement rehabilitation, $3.3 million for arterial and collector streets, residential resurfacing at $4.9 million. These funds include carryover dollars from 18, 19, and 20. So when we looked at our carryover amount, we are actually able to put together a $13 million resurfacing program. It is the largest resurfacing program as far as we can go back 20, 30, 40 years. It's the largest dollar amount. And as you can tell, there is no debt. It is going to be paid with cash through income tax 4 or gas tax and some special assessments. So yes, this is a special year, and we've talked to Jimmy Hall, making sure that our contractors are aware that we're ready to go. The final one on here is also resurfacing. This is a state project, resurfacing on State Route 93 and State Route 162. The final line item on here is the sidewalk program. We are looking at a $565,000 sidewalk program. This is the continuation of our petitioned sidewalk reconstruction of residential and commercial properties. We were able to address 109 requests last year. Right now, we have 432 requests on the books. We are current as of September of 2018, so we have some work to do, but we are hoping with this allocation, we could get caught up to late 2019 or early 2020 requests. And with that, we open it up for questions.
Any questions from anyone? Reference resurfacing. One question I have is that Bellwood. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is that so that's a study to see it how.
There's an image right here at the bottom right-hand corner. There's an image here, and yes.
That's a concrete street, you say, and it's
correct.
Okay, is that collector, secondary? I'm not familiar with
residential street petition.
They petitioned for this? Okay, so I guess the question then lends itself to, so if a ward council person would have a concrete street that's in very bad repair, they could request a petition to have it taken up and then asphalt installed as opposed to the concrete, or what's the process on that?
So what's interesting is we worked with the ward council person and all the residents out on the street with the public, and we costed out their assessment, whether it would be replaced as a concrete street versus the assessment cost of it being replaced as an asphalt street. And then we allowed the public input to get back to us on it. And overwhelmingly, I think driven by the assessment cost, they agreed that the asphalt replacement was the way to push the project forward.
Good.
It's cheaper.
Very
That's
neat.
Ward 1 or 8? Is that 1 or 8?
Ms. Amobian, would you like to say something?
Yeah, is that Ward 1 or 8?
1.
1, okay, I thought so. Now, I just wanted to comment on something you said earlier about ODOT. I think it'd be wonderful for us to meet with them, because if we could find out what their schedule is, it would be wonderful by itself, because that's why we had so much traffic construction going on, because all of the plans that we had and they had collided without talking to each other. So it'd be nice for them to give us some kind of schedule, what they're going to be doing and when.
Yes,
So I agree. That'd be great to have a conversation with them.
Very good. Ms. Samples, that would go through your committee, so I'm sure you took a note.
Thank you. Question. So I'm looking at the resurfacing program. Is there any money allocated in the budget for brick laid streets? Because I know in East Akron, they have a lot of red brick streets.
That is on our radar. We have talked about that. We are looking at a concrete pavement rehabilitation program where we are going to look at the condition of our concrete streets. Next on our radar will be the brick streets as well, but not this year, perhaps next year or the following year.
Okay, one thing that concerns me is when I see them putting the asphalt black pavement or little black rocks, and they're filling in the brick streets with that. And it seems like it's causing a lot of erosion on those streets when they do that. So just something to keep in mind.
Understood.
Good, thank you. Mr. Lombardo, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fusco. So, Ms. Tomic, the question I have is, you mentioned there's carryover funds, I think, from 2018-19. Is that, if that's true, is that because maybe we ran out of time, the weather wasn't cooperating? Obviously, we know this year the pandemic got in the way. So that's my first question.
So in instances, our collections in 18 and 19 were greater than we anticipated. So what we did is we took those collections, what we collected, the difference of what we budgeted versus what we collected.
Oh,
We
okay.
took that dollar amount and then we allocated a certain percentage to both police, fire, and streets for both
Okay.
18, 19, and 20.
Okay. Okay. The second question I had was similar to Mr. Fusco and really Councilwoman Samples, is that in regard to concrete pavement rehabilitation, I'm just going to guess here and say that when we resurface, we're doing asphalt streets 95% of the time, and maybe concrete 5%. And of course, I know you said the brick is not happening till next year. Is that a good assessment? Am I way off base? Or can you just tell me for 2020, what percentage would be asphalt versus the concrete?
I would, asphalt has been 100%. So in terms of repair, replacement, I don't know that we've had any concrete replaced streets unless you take into consideration Romick Road. That was concrete with concrete, but I don't recall any concrete repairs in the past 2 or 3 years. We focused on the asphalt repairs, resurfacing for the past at least 5 years, I think. And I don't know, Mr. Hall or Mr. Teodecki have anything to add to that?
Well, I would just like to maybe offline if Mr. Hall or Mr. Teodecki could, give me a call.
Okay.
We can talk about that offline. Thank you.
Did you have a second question?
That was it with the
Okay.
concrete. Yeah.
Okay.
Carryover. Yeah.
Mr. Malik?
Thank you. I had a couple questions about speed tables. I see Mr. Hardy's actually comment right here, which is part of it. But so I guess I'll direct these either to you, Ms. Tomic, or Mr. Hardy. So I know the speed table report that we got from the city and from AMATS was great and showed significant reductions, especially where on Shockalog, where the 2 speed tables were put in succession. Is the plan going forward to, in most locations, put 2 in succession?
I think yes. However, I would put a caveat that not all residential streets are created the same. So Shockalog, it might be very different from a street that is more deep in a neighborhood. I think the way we've looked at it is, and we're still formulating the standards by which we would deploy or not deploy a speed table, right? Because we're not going to be able to get them onto every street. But the goal would be then to look at streets that are residential, 25 miles an hour, and that we have data on, typically from Lieutenant Decatur and his team at traffic enforcement, have an existing speeding problem, that we can document so that we can sort of see pre and post intervention how well we did. We would obviously work with ward council people to make sure that list every year, once we build up the inventory of these things, that we listen to you as well in terms of problem areas. But it's the one speed table that we did, the pilot that we did over near Edgewood, was still very effective. But there's no question that that 2 in succession is even better. So I think it's just going to depend, honestly, on what the situation is on any given street. But there's no question, you're correct, that 2 are better than 1.
Sure. That's really helpful. And I know that, it's a great point that the context of a street, every street is different, every location in the street is different. There's $50,000 operating, $50,000 private. Is that from AMATS?
I would have to, Ms. Tomic, do you have that handy?
We are still looking at those funding sources. The numbers that were identified 50-50 was in the capital budget, but we are going to have to revisit that particular line item. And so we're having those conversations right now. It could go up to $100,000, just the GO share of it.
Okay.
I would, sorry. I would say that the mayor's committed to $100,000, one way or the other. We just have to look at
Yeah.
how we get there.
Yeah. And this and these cost roughly $5,000 a piece. That's right.
Correct.
Okay. And then also I know that in the, this is just one of the kinds of interventions on the menu of speed interventions. I know that there was a reference in the description to flashing radar signage, kind of permanent versions of the trailers that we all love to have, and then also to bump outs. So are those things that are going to be in addition to the 100,000, or what are we looking at there? Because I think those are very, great things to potentially pilot.
I would say that they're definitely things we're looking at. I firmly expect that the 100,000 we're going to spend this year are going to be on speed tables. That's not to say that we won't find other ways to get some of those, as you said, more permanent versions of our radar trailers. Those are actually more expensive than the speed tables. And so I think that I know that Mr. Lupica has looked at getting those on a regular basis. And so we can start to deploy them across the city. I would have to get back to you on that. I fully expect that the 100,000 that's identified there for neighborhood intervention is going to be spent on buying speed tables this year.
Okay.
And this,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, this is just year one. So this is a conversation that we're going to have in future years within the city and with AMETS as well. And so we'll build on what we're doing this year.
Definitely. And I think, just to editorialize, and I'm done with my questions, I think that, all of us across the city, and I think I'm sure in the administration hear so much about traffic safety and about speeding, and I think that it will go a long way. This is a great first step in terms of letting folks know we hear their concerns, just as folks complained about the condition of the roads, and to Mr. Hardy's point, now look at where we are with the roads, the largest ever single investment. And I think that if we can look to what we're going to do on traffic safety, I would encourage my colleagues on council, if over the next few weeks we can find a way to get that number from 100,000 on residential traffic safety up to 200 or 250,000, I think it'd be a great investment. Obviously, we want to make sure that it's something that's feasible for folks in the administration, but I think that this is an area that pays huge dividends in terms of safety and in terms of kind of quality of life.
Very good. Is there any further questions or comments from anyone? Anyone whatsoever? Okay, I'm looking here, not seeing anyone. I assume we're okay then. We'll pick this up again next week, right, Helen Tomek?
Correct, at 4 o'clock next Monday.
4 o'clock next Monday. Thank you all for your patience and your questions and comments, and I'm sure we'll be rolling up our sleeves next week as we wait for our deliveries at home from the pizza guy. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you for your thoughts and your comments as well. We truly appreciate getting this conversation and input from you guys as well. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We're going to end the live stream now, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock for the city council meeting.